Hey everybody, alright, in this lesson we are going to make the future donk sound. Who doesn't like a good donk? Right, so there are clearly two sounds which make up the bulk of this patch. We've got the bass layer and then we've got a sample. But there are two other layers which we'll get to in a bit when we make it, just to add a bit of extra texture for those who want to, just to make it sound a little more versatile. But we'll get to that in a bit. For now, let's just concentrate on the main sound and we will recreate it. So I'm going to initialize the preset. And again, we are going to just create the texture of it first. So let's change this to the factory basic shapes and just change the wavetable position. So we've got that sort of semi-saw, semi-sine wave. Sorry, semi-square sine wave kind of going on. See, it's a bit too high, so let's change that in pitch. Okay, so sounding all good. Now let's get in our sample, which is one of our samples which will come in a future sample pack. Just going to drag that in from my file explorer, drop it in there, turn that right up. And I just need to activate musical mode so the sample gets played like any other note on the keyboard. There we go. Let's just solo this actually, so we're not getting distracted by all of the drums. Okay, so you can start to hear the texture come together. Let's make sure this is going to filter 1 as well. And do make sure you turn off loop. You don't want that on, otherwise when you play it, it will just keep looping around. And we want this to be a single hit. So kind of getting there, but we do need a couple of other things. And for a donk sounding bass, one of the tricks is to use very fast pitch modulation. So we're going to use an envelope. Let's use envelope 2. And we're going to add this to the transpose of the first oscillator. Let's just turn that down a bit. It's probably a bit extreme. So at the moment, it's going to sound a bit crazy. So we need to turn the sustain all the way down. And then the decay, we want to be quite quick. Remember, we can zoom in if we want, just by using our mouse wheel. Let me just turn off the sample for a second, so you get that nice fat kind of kick, almost sound to it. That's almost perfect, maybe just a little quicker. Okay, great stuff. So together with the sample, that makes a nice donkey kind of sound. Now let's just add a filter. I'm going to turn down the resonance. We're going to be adding some effects, so we're going to be adding some brightness back in, but we're also going to control this with envelope 3. So let's just drag that down. And again, we want this to be very quick, so this is going to help add to the sort of donkiness. Makes it even more punchy, which is great. Again, we can zoom in if we want to. Perhaps just a fraction more attack. Let's see what that sounds like. So we can choose to have a bit of variation on that. If you wanted it to be more attacky, then have less attack. Or if you want it to be a little more gentle. I'm going to leave it like this because that's what the original patch is like. And I think when we add some of the effect sounds, this is going to change it up quite a bit. We'll come back and add the extra voices in a moment, or the extra oscillators. But for now, let's just go and get this sound correct. So we're going to go to the effects page. Let's add distortion. We'll keep it on soft clip, but I will put on a post filter here, turn the resonance down, just to take off that super high-end bit. And I'm going to turn down the mix a bit, because you want some of that distorted sound, but not all of it. Okay, that's great. Let's add the compressor, but I'm going to have this after the distortion. And it's just a case of really playing around with it to get the right sort of balance, but even that's pretty good. Maybe just change the mix. Okay, no problem. Let's add reverb. And with the bass sound, we definitely want to take out some of the lows of this, otherwise the track could get a little bit muddy. Don't want to take out too much, but you don't want all the bass. Like, you can just hear how muddy that's going to be with it reverberating on the low end, so somewhere around here is pretty good. Just taking out the sub of the reverb. Okay, so that's sounding pretty decent. Now I'm going to do the same trick that we did before with the EQ. So let's add this up the top there before the distortion. Just going to adjust the main output a little bit, just so it's not going into the red. Okay, so sounding pretty decent so far. Let's go back and just add these extra oscillators. These are only if you want to change the texture a bit. Perhaps this donk sound is just not quite right for your track, so you want to add another layer to this sound. So let's activate oscillator 2, change that down an octave, and let's just change this to basic shapes. And we'll have it on a triangle wave. Okay, great. And then let's add some wave morphing. Performance scale, let's crank that up. And then let's add some squeeze. Try some unison as well. So at the moment when we play it, you can hear that every single hit is just very slightly different. That's not always desirable. So to stop that, we want to change this control here, which is phase randomization, which means the wave shape starts at a different time each time a note is played. So we're going to change that all the way down. So basically every single note that's played is going to sound, or it's going to start from the same position, which takes away that kind of randomness. And for bass, that's a good thing. You want it to be nice and solid. All right, so that's the first texture. Obviously, choose to use that if you want to. Now let's add the third texture. Again, let's just take this down an octave and let's just change this to a different patch from the factory bank. So we're going to change it to saws for days. Now already you could use something like that, which is pretty crazy. Let's just make sure these are routed through to filter 1. I want them all going through filter 1. Okay, so that sounds pretty cool already. In the patch that I made, I actually use this to FM modulate oscillator 1. Let's just turn that on. You just have to play around with this just to get the right setting, otherwise it can sound a little bit out of key. But if I'm honest, actually now I've kind of heard it, I actually like it how it was. So just as it is originally. But anyway, it's up to you. You can do lots of different things. But it's just another way of adding a different texture to the donk sound. Now, of course, we've just used the pure donk as it works better in this track, but you can experiment, of course. All right, thanks very much for watching, guys and girls. See you in the next one.